What is evidence? Is it facts? Is it data? Is it sensations in our nerves? Is it what someone wrote in a peer-reviewed paper? Is it what your friend read on the internet? We see a meter needle pointing to the numeral 5. That's evidence. But of what? With the theory of electromagnetism, we can say the voltage drop across that resistor is 5 volts. Now that's a fact. Between the evidence and the fact is a bridge of interpretation. Evidence tells us that something is. Fact tells us what something is. The theory ties them together. The meter needle gives you 5. The theory gives you volts. Stephen Toulmin wrote of the continual interaction of theory with fact, the way in which theories are built on facts while at the same time giving significance to them and even determining what are facts for us at all. So a fact is the interpretation of specific evidence of raw sensation in the light of some collection of general concepts, a theory. The theory tells us what words to use to talk about the evidence. Without words, the evidence is meaningless and incommunicable. Words mean, evidence doesn't. If you think it does, please tell me how, without using words. Theories, then, are the rules for assigning words to evidence. Facts are evidence fossilized in the words of a theory. Philosophers like to say that theories are underdetermined by the evidence. That business of assigning words is a creative act. Building that bridge of interpretation is an entrepreneurial enterprise. There can be more than one way to do it, and every way will be uncertain and more or less risky. We see the sun rise in the east and set in the west. That's evidence. Claudius Ptolemy told me that it was evidence for the fact that the sun goes around the earth. But I read the latest astronomy textbook, and I got an A on the test, ain't I smart? So I know it's evidence for the fact that the earth goes around the sun. However, I work in architecture. To site a house on a lot so that the morning sun shines into the kitchen window, I calculate the position of the sun in its daily path around the earth. If I were to try to figure it out with calculations of the earth going around the sun, I would spend all my time on calculations and never get the house sited on the lot. What both Ptolemy and textbook overlook are unconscious presumptions about viewpoint. The presumption that there can be only one, or that one, our present one, is privileged and somehow untouched by the mundane human concerns with goals and values and paying the rent, or that the passive voice in scientific style confers a pointless quality to statements so voiced. Each view, and a theory is a view, a model of its own universe, is from some intellectual location. That location will be specific and unique. It will have its own history and values, its own attitudes and goals, its own limitations and ambiguities and contradictions. Perhaps most important, it will have its own mortality. No theory is forever. Every bit of evidence will be interpreted from some viewpoint, much of it unconscious. The greatest effort of discovery is just this business of questioning one's habitual viewpoint. It's hard, it's emotional, it's upsetting. You're constantly being elbowed by your reasonable self. Come on, that's just crazy. The earth moves, you're imagining things. There's electricity in space, that's complete cobblers. And of course, the old theory is not wrong for its data set and context, but data sets and context change. No change has been as radical as the change during the space age. Instruments have extended the reach of evidence gathering, of human sensation, far beyond the biological limits that have constrained all prior preconceptions. We look at the universe in radio and X-ray light. We touch other planets. We sniff the solar wind. The old viewpoint is as provincial as Ptolemy's, and both are useful only for siting houses and sending rockets to Mars. What presumptions shall we use? What theories shall we construct to make our new expanded set of evidence into facts. Evidence is mutable. Evidence is ambiguous. To give it a spine, to make it stand for something, we have to wrap it around a theory. The truth value of the consequent vertebrate, its usefulness, its viability, depend not solely on the evidence, nor solely on the theory, but on their relationship. Specific statements derived from theory, evidential predictions, must correspond to specific statements of evidence interpreted by theory. These are the two criteria of truth: consistency and correspondence. Within any theoretical structure, truth can be determined absolutely, but there's no continuity of assumptions between alternative theories. That's what makes them alternatives. Whether we adopt one or another is a matter of decision, not of viewpointless truth values. We decide that one is better suited to the problems we want to solve. One fits in better with the cultural values of our time. One is more understandable in light of our history. One is easier to test with our available instruments. There are no privileged viewpoints, only preferred ones. Despite Popper's popularizing the idea of falsification, the usual practice is to look for verifications. After all, you can't do anything with a falsified proposition. As verifying facts pile up, we forget that we're interpreting and deciding. The scientific method in full-throated passive voice seems to be validating how smart we are. We hear the echo, and we forget that it wasn't the evidence, but ourselves who first spoke. Toulmin again writes, "For though nature must of course be left to answer to our interrogations for herself, it is always we who frame the questions, and the questions we ask inevitably depend on prior theoretical considerations. These preconceptions," he writes, "are both inevitable and proper, if suitably tentative and subject to reshaping in the light of our experience." Toulmin draws the metaphor that theories and their preconceptions are like eyeglasses. We can't see the evidence without looking through them. We may not realize that we're wearing them unless we take them off. Even then, we'll need a second pair to see the first pair. This indicates the danger of consensus science. With only one pair of glasses, only one set of preconceptions for everyone, we overlook the glasses and imagine that we have perfect vision. We lose the suitably tentative attitude for reshaping preconceptions and become hidebound in sclerotic dogma. The old familiar facts become rituals. We presume that we occupy a privileged viewpoint. We stop learning new ideas. We stop discovering new perspectives. To keep science alive, we need more than one viewpoint. To keep up with the changes that science itself generates, we need to look at those changes in a variety of ways. Between the evidence and the facts, we need to pause and ask ourselves, what else could it be? Thank you.